Right Network.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to New Right Network tonight. Your host, Brian Smith, giving you the real news, exposing the fake news Monday through Friday, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern. This is Monday night, and over the weekend, there was a lot of information that was dropped. A lot of things happened over the weekend, and I want to start off by saying here at New Right Network tonight, we are embarking on a new project. Smith.tv, you'll get all the updates of how the progress is moving right along. But here's the general crux of it all. We believe that there needs to be a Christian cultural revolution. We absolutely need to get back to our roots, our Christian roots, the founding of our country. We need to be more focused on Christ and not all these other crazy, nonsensical things. The 11-year-old child that is paraded around in bars, doing provocative sexual dances, that is labeled a transgendered individual. This nonsense in our society has to stop, folks. And so on this journey, on this project that we're starting right now, we are going to be focused on helping and assisting individuals that want to make this change. We are going to start to flood the zone, if you will, in Congress. We are going to work and focus extremely hard in getting MAGA folks, America First folks, those that have our similar agendas, we need to support and focus on getting them elected to Congress. We're doing this through multiple avenues, and the project is starting to unfold. In this Christian revolution, we have to focus on bringing Christianity back to the forefront of our society. This society cannot continue down this road with the moral bankruptcy that it has right now and that the left is pushing. The Democrat Party is pushing moral bankruptcy to literally do as you will, whenever you will, however you will. We need to bring back responsibility. And as Rush Limbaugh says all the time, freedom isn't free, and freedom isn't the freedom to do whatever you want. Freedom only comes with responsibility, and we need to bring back that responsibility. And with that, we need to bring back Christianity to our schools. We need to teach our children right from wrong. We need to expose the evils of the world and not shy away from calling them out as they are. Now, last Friday, we had over in New Zealand a terrorist attack, which looks like a white guy that shot up a mosque, and a couple of mosques were shot up. The details are all out there, folks. You know what it is. About 49 people are dead. Well, that makes the mainstream media news. That goes viral. That's all over the world in every country. You have the President of the United States tweeting out, we're in solidarity with New Zealand, any assistance you need. You have the left using this as a tool, as a weapon. Again, I reported on Friday, you have San Francisco calling for more security beef up around mosques in San Francisco. This is just an attempt to gaslight their people. This is an attempt to say that there is some kind of attack on Islam, a peaceful religion, when in reality, nothing can be further from the truth. On last Thursday's show, we played a clip from Brigitte Gabriel, gives an incredible speech about how one Muslim woman said to her in a meeting, you know, 1 billion Muslims in the world, and the majority of us are peaceful. So why blame all of Muslims? And she went on to say that the peaceful majority are irrelevant. The majority of Germans were not part of the Nazi group. The majority of Germans did not support extermination of Jews, but the majority of Germans remained silent. Majority of Japanese did not support the slaughtering of Chinese and Asians during World War II, but the majority of Japanese stayed silent. It's not the majority. It's those that are doing the actual violent act. And if you're saying anywhere from 5 to 15% of Muslims in the world are the ones committing violent acts, that's somewhere around 300 million Muslims worldwide. That's one hell of an army, folks. That's an army larger than ours. That's an army the size of every single citizen in America. We are under attack. And as the news will not report, all the Christians that are being persecuted worldwide on a daily basis. This is who is being attacked. This is the extermination of the Christian religion. And again, I just want to reiterate, I've been in talks with some friends and some folks on our scope, as well as some of those in our private message group. I've also received a lot of DMs and emails from you all as well. QAnon, or the Q thing. I'm sorry, folks, I do not subscribe to QAnon. Focusing on Q, focusing on the QAnons or the Anons that follow Q, focusing on these individuals that say that they decipher Q, to follow and obsess and watch and really spend all your time in the QAnon world is not helping anybody or anything. And again, Donald Trump tweets out, Donald Trump is the president of the United States of America. Him tweeting out information is great. That's about all you need. Donald Trump is not the savior. That would be Jesus Christ. Donald Trump is the president of the United States. Do not put him up on a pedestal. He's human, just like the rest of us. We are all flawed. The QAnon is a huge distraction from what I can see and what I can tell, because reality is we have got to do something to save this country. We have got to do something physical to make this country great again. And if you can't physically do it, you can do it by writing a check. You can do it by helping other groups who can physically get out there and do things. If you're that type of individual that just doesn't want to get out and physically do something, then you need to support new news media like this. You need to support Donald Trump's campaign. You need to support your local church financially. Folks, this is an absolute fight for our country. Now, we are not of this world. We are not going to be here forever. This planet will not be here forever. The global warming alarmists, the crazy nonsense, the fact that you think that you have the ability to control something beyond your abilities is insane. It's a little g God complex. That is of the left. That's the crazy nonsense. That's what they sell in order to gain and maintain control over the entire population. Folks, our goals need to be focusing on Christ and our relationship with Christ. No more of this religion stuff. They're calling Islam a religion. They're calling all these other religions. This is no longer about religion. This is about your personal relationship with Christ. Something that you and something that I need to personally develop. And along that journey, we need to pick up those who are suffering, need a better way of life. We can show them that. Open up our arms as we run through this life and pick up those along the way, so that one day when we're in heaven with God, all the pain and suffering will be gone. But until then, we need to continue to fight on the good fight. We need to continue to do something. We cannot allow Islam to dominate the world. We cannot allow Islam to continue to eradicate Christians from this earth. There was a statistic out last week that said that 60% of millennials feel that bringing up Christianity is a bad thing because you make other religions feel bad. Folks, there is only one religion. There is only one God. There is only one Savior, Christ, who preaches love. And it is the only religion, if you will, the only religion that has ever dealt with the one thing that we all fear and that nobody can control. That is death. Christianity, Christ, is the only one who had ever conquered death so that we could live forever with him. The Quran preaches deceitfulness, hate, anger, to violently kill or suppress non-believers. That is not what Christianity preaches. We preach that you must preach the good word, must tell people about the good news of Jesus Christ and his coming, and that we are all sinners, but by the grace of God, John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. Hold on to that and that alone, and develop your relationship with Christ. And that is the only way that we are going to save our country and make America great again. Donald Trump is doing everything that he humanly can up there on the Hill in Washington, D.C. Now it's our turn to help him in every way we can. You've got Scott Pressler on the ground signing up new voters daily. Scott Pressler meeting people everywhere across the country, those that have walked away from the Democrat Party, whether it be the hashtag walk away movement, whether it be Blexit, or whether it be the new movement, Jexodus. The Democrat Party's platform has become the party of evil. And some people may get triggered by that, and some people may get upset. But to kill and murder a baby in the third trimester is pure evil. To support Planned Parenthood, who provides abortions on demand, is pure evil. This has to stop. The dividing of the country is evil, and it's by design. The Democrats want nothing more than to be divisive. They want nothing more to divide all the races and all the cultures so that they can conquer us. Now, our goals here at Smith.TV, New Right Network Tonight. Our goals are to develop an organization to where we can bring in MAGA, E-celebs, America First individuals, those of you that hold our values, those of you that believe in a higher power that is Christ. For those of you who want to make a difference and want to be elected to Congress, we are here to support you. We are here to lay a path forward for you to walk that path, have a complete support team, a complete legal support team, a complete moral support team while you serve in Congress. That will be our organization to help and support you as we together make America great again, as we together keep America great. Folks, after 2024, Donald Trump will no longer be president. We must form an organization that is out there supporting individuals that share our values, our ideologies, the same ideologies as our founding fathers, to be elected to Congress to help shape our world and also to tackle the Leviathan that is the Department of Education. This is the indoctrination. This is the child abuse that we currently suffered under and had no idea. This is the organization that needs to be dealt with so that our children in the future are not subjected to indoctrination and propaganda, pure flat out and out lies. Not only that, but we will also support candidates and help get candidates elected to local school boards where they can fight back these unions. And that's the other thing, the unions that are tied into the Democrat Party. Now, the Supreme Court did pass a law stating that you no longer have to be forced into a union. So teachers can leave unions. They no longer have to pay union dues. And I highly suggest all Christian conservative teachers out there leave the union. And this at Lone Fox 0101. Public schools, TV and video games indoctrinate our young with the combinations of socialism, communism, and Marxist ideologies. Parents need to unplug their children and confront the school boards. Hashtag thought control, hashtag indoctrination, hashtag socialism, hashtag education, hashtag Common Core. This is the evils that we must confront. And we believe here at New Right Network Tonight at Smith.TV, developing this organization hand in hand with those who have the ability to donate to build something that will create a Christian revolution. This is what our founding fathers believed in. This is what we believe in. A country cannot exist that does not have a moral, just grounding. We got to get back to the basics, folks. And Islam on display. It's unfortunate what happened in New Zealand. It is abhorrent. It is evil. The media doing what they do and grabbing on to these headlines and these headlines alone is propagandist, is gaslighting, and it's got to stop. Social media is here to expose what the true evil is, and we here are bringing it to you in real time. At HRT Ablaze, how is the New Zealand attacker considered right-wing? He hates conservatism. He said he opposes Trump's policies. He said his favorite form of government is communist China. He said he wants the government to ban guns. Nah, he's a racist leftist. That's a fact, folks. You cannot be a conservative Christian and hold hate in your heart like this to where you go out and you take another life. That is not what we stand for. And at Reclaim EVROPA, Ebba Ackerlund, born June 7th, 2005, died April 7th, 2017. Stockholm, Sweden, multiculturalism. 11 Christians are killed every day by the usual suspects. That's 4,000 Christians every year. But mainstream media don't care. Western governments don't care. Social media don't care. And just a little backstory on this young woman that has now passed away. Ebba Ackerlund was walking to meet her mother when she was crushed by a lorry driven by Akamat Akalov, an asylum seeker. Ebba was partially deaf, unable to hear the lorry coming. She was 12 years old. A concert will honor her memory on April 7th, 2019. This is Islam on display. Islam and the Quran state you must kill the infidels. The infidels are those who believe in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. It specifically says that there is only one God in the Quran, and that if you believe in the triune, the three gods in one, that you are an infidel and you must be killed. And I fear that we're at a breaking point right now, that if we absolutely do not do something to Islam, just as Sweden has, and in the past 1,300 years, everywhere Islam has planted its roots, it has eradicated Christianity. It has eradicated all other religions, Sharia law, which is total slavery. This is the evils we must expose. And also this tweeted out by Reclaim EVROPA, Brookstonian.
أشهد أن محمدا رسول
What's going on? This is Brooklyn.
If you live in Brooklyn, this is what you will be subjected to. And also this video clip, a news clip, posted on social media. Teacher quit her job because 11-year-old pupils threatened to behead her. Folks, I don't know how to say it any more clear than Islam is the religion of evil. There is no question about it. And Paul Joseph Watson tweets out at Prison Planet, Fulani jihadists rack up a death toll over 120 Christians over the past 3 weeks in central Nigeria, employing machetes, gunfire to slaughter men, women, and children, burnt down over 100 houses, destroying property and spreading terror. This is not what we're hearing in mainstream media because it doesn't fit their narrative. They would like nothing more than to install Islam in America because communism no longer works, because we're awake to communism. We understand communism, but make no bones about it, they've changed the name. They use socialism now. And these young millennials that believe that socialism is the way, so sadly don't understand that it always ends in communism. And now that we have Venezuela, full-blown, complete meltdown from socialism and communism combined, the dictatorship of Maduro, social media and technology can bring that to the forefront. Donald Trump tweeting out about it. It's hard to not see socialism on display, communism on display. Hence, the Democrat Party embracing Islam. Why? Because Islam will enslave the people, and though those elites can stay and remain at the top in total control over those enslaved. Remember, the Democrat Party has always been the party of slavery. And this at NZ011, radical Muslims murder 32 Nigerian Christians, torch church in brutal attack. This by CBN News. And again, we have all kinds of people tweeting out in the wake of the media covering only the New Zealand terrorist attack that attacked and killed 49 Muslims at Red Pill Report. And these are the folks that you need to follow. When I show you these, the names and the individuals, they tweet out on a regular basis real news. So if you're on Twitter, I highly suggest you follow these individuals. And again, at Red Pill Report. In case you missed it, 120 Christians slaughtered by Muslim herders in Nigeria, media silent. And I personally tweeted this out because there's an individual that I follow that tweets out in another language. So I translate it and I repost it. And this reposted with the English translation. This is what Hamas does to its people. I can guarantee you, no event is planned in Europe to denounce the violence of Hamas, nor the Palestinians, nor the leftists, and nor the UN. And guess why? Yes, folks, this is real, this is gruesome, and this happens all the time. There's a documentary on Netflix that exposes Islam, exposes Saudi Arabia, exposes the horrors of those that are subjected to the slavery. There's a big giant area called Chop Chop Square. And there's a reason why it's called Chop Chop Square. It's a huge, giant, maybe football field size cobblestone square with steel drains all around. The reason for that is so that the blood from the heads chopped off get washed down into the drains. No cameras, no visitors, no vacationers are allowed in Saudi Arabia. These individuals from England snuck in, posed as a corporation doing business. And while they were there, they were able to film and show the horrors of life living under Islam. And this posted by at IDF, Israel Defense Forces. This is not a poetry reading at the UN. This is what it is. CC at Santiago A. Canton at UN.
There were people having poetry readings, playing music, waving flags, things that can't in any way be considered to be violence.
The UN absolutely does not want us to know what Islam is all about. The leftists, the globalists, their agenda is to control the populations of the world, either through communism or through Islam. Both achieve the same thing, to enslave the citizenry. And this at Super Elite Texan, the plan for the destruction of the United States. Their plan was used as evidence in the largest terrorism trial in the history of the United States. Their work in America is a great jihad in eliminating and destroying Western civilization from within.
I am holding in my hand the Muslim Brotherhood plan for the destruction of the United States, written 5/22/1991. It is titled the Muslim Brotherhood, an explanatory memorandum for the general strategic goal for the group, the Muslim Brotherhood in North America, written 5/22/1991. This plan was presented as evidence in the Holy Land Foundation trial, the largest terrorism trial ever in the history of the United States, where our government handed down 108 guilty verdicts for Muslim Americans and Muslim American organizations raising money to support terrorist organizations in the Middle East to the tune of millions. And I'm just going to read you a paragraph of this plan, so it'll give you an idea of what I'm talking about. They talk about the settlement in the United States. The process of settlement is a civilization jihadist process with all the word means. The Ikhwan, which is the Arabic word for brothers, must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believers so that it is eliminated and Allah's religion is made victorious over all other religions. Is this clear? They don't mince words, do they?
This taken a while ago, but still sheds light on Islam and how our country used to treat terrorists, how our country, how our government used to treat Islamic radical terrorists. And we need to get back to the way it used to be. The Democrat Party wants nothing more than to have total control over America. To control America, to control the citizens, to control the governments, to control the businesses, to control the elections. We see this every single day. And their way of gaining total control is through dividing the citizens of America into groups, into categories, by pushing propaganda like CNN with lies and propagandist reporting, and by gaslighting their people. Gaslighting is a way of controlling individuals. It's from a movie back in the 1940s called Gaslighting. It's where a husband used these techniques to have total control over his wife. It's a very abusive and extreme tactics that can be used on just about anybody. And the Democrat Party has truly gaslit their entire voting bloc, so much so that now you see all these young gaslit individuals angry and frustrated that the gaslighters, meaning that the old Democrats, the higher elites, have not done what they've said they're going to do, whether it be global warming, whether it be gun confiscation, whatever it be. They have not lived up to their promise, which there's no intent to because they want divisiveness and they want to continue to gaslight people. Well, now you see the ones that are gaslit being elected to Congress and now fighting the upper elites, and you have a fracturing of the party. Check this out. This happened over the weekend. Chelsea Clinton confronted by those that her parents have gaslit over the decades.
Right here is the result after all that you have done and all this homophobia that you have sowed.
I'm so sorry. Well, certainly it was never my intention. I do believe words matter. I believe we have to show
They do matter. And this right here is the result of a massacre stoked by people like you and the words that you have put out into the world. And I want you to know that, and I want you to feel that deep inside. The 49 people died because of the rhetoric that you put out there.
I'm so sorry.
I don't think...
What does "I'm sorry you feel that way" mean? What does that mean?
These young gaslit individuals, also tweeted by Super Elite Texan, he tweets out, "Liberal thinking personified. They blame anything except the person who did the crime. Gun crime, blame the gun, not the demon who used it. Chelsea has about as much to do with the New Zealand terror attack as her mother does with telling the truth. Zero." That's fine. But the fact remains that her parents gaslit these individuals. That's why they're attacking Chelsea Clinton, so that she can relay the message to her parents to get something done. It's a sad state of affairs. We have an entire generation that has been brainwashed. And over the weekend as well, Donald Trump calls out the ghost of John McCain. And at @V_actually, Meghan McCain to Trump. No one will ever love you like my dad. And then she questions Meghan McCain by saying, who is they, Meghan McCain? The Viet Cong? ISIS? Globalist? Democrats? And we didn't elect your dad president. Now did we? And at Political Short, 14 media outlets spread hoax about Trump calling for violence in Breitbart interview. This is all they want to do. They want to divide Donald Trump from his base. Folks, he's garnering a 93% support from his base. Some reports are now showing that his approval rating is at 52%. People are getting it. Independents are sick and tired of the backbiting and the lies. And when they get caught up, they think that something's real, and then they find out it's fake news. And I'm not sure who listens to CNN anymore, but that's out of control. The big witch hunt, the Russia. More information is coming out. We know this information already. However, Donald Trump is tweeting out this information, letting you know that he knows the truth. He's been tweeting out Dan Bongino's responses and some of his tweets and his new book, Spygate. So it's obvious that Donald Trump is aware of Spygate and most likely either has read it or has been briefed on it from somebody who has read it. And a couple of Donald Trump's tweets this weekend report Christopher Steele backed up his Democrat and crooked Hillary paid for fake and unverified dossier with information he got from sent-in watchers of low-rating CNN. This is the information that got us the witch hunt. And then also Donald Trump tweeting out this video about the witch hunt.
What you're starting to see is that the Department of Justice was probably giving more than dog whistles, but giving some direction to the FBI. And when you hear Lisa Page and these others, and you start to read and break down what Baker and you start, he was
the general counsel.
You start to break that down. You start to realize that there was never an intention or even an opportunity to prosecute here.
Right, but specifically in Peter Strzok's testimony, we found out that the Clinton legal team pushed back on the FBI getting the server, and then said, okay, you can look at the server, but you can't get the Clinton Foundation emails. Why is that? Were they hiding something?
And this is where Cheryl Mills and Heather Samuelson and those closest to Secretary Clinton, they had negotiated their way through what the FBI could look at. I've never seen anything like that. The FBI should be selecting those materials, not the Clinton team itself. Of course. Yeah.
We asked the Clinton Foundation for comment. They would not give us comment on that, by the way, to be fair. Was bias at the Bureau ignored? The fact of the matter, we learn more about the insurance policy, for example.
Yes, that insurance policy that, this text messaging that we saw back and forth.
Page and Strzok, he's never going to, we're going to make sure he's not elected.
That's right. And so what was this so-called insurance policy? Now you've got to actually see what John Ratcliffe, who was questioning, it was able to draw out of this testimony, and then you start to see that, yeah, they really had no evidence. I mean, they used,
start the whole investigation.
They had no, and they didn't think that Donald Trump was going to actually win, but they thought they still had this insurance policy that if the president did get traction, then Donald Trump, candidate Donald Trump, then they could put some things in
Last
action.
point, over-reliance on the dossier to get this whole thing going.
That has become more and more absolutely crystal clear. This dossier, it's funded by the Democrats. It's funded by the Clinton campaign. There are millions of dollars going overseas to generate something that is absolutely bogus from top to bottom. And this is everything. They put all of their marbles on this. And you have Director Comey, you have Rod Rosenstein signing off on it, giving it to a FISA court on multiple occasions.
And you mentioned Republican John Ratcliffe. I was struck that he asked Peter Strzok, all this bias at the FBI, has that man, Bob Mueller, or his investigators ever talked to you, Peter Strzok, about that bias and how it started? He said, nope.
No.
And then this video, Donald Trump tweeted out how Kennedy absolutely blows up on the guest host.
When they're before. We don't need to investigate. That is not true. She was almost president of the United States. And all of the elements here that have gone awry are unacceptable. I don't care who's in office. I don't care what office they were seeking. When you have the top people at the FBI who were told that they can't look into this server for where the real crimes may have been committed. And we don't know because the people who were in charge of abstracting the emails that were thrown away were also acting as Hillary Clinton's lawyers. They were also witnesses in the case. They were also there at the FBI.
Let's give Robert a chance to respond.
I know you like yelling and pointing at me, but let me just
this
respond.
gets me so fired up because it is wrong on all levels. McCabe was trying to shield her. Comey was trying to shield her.
You didn't hear what I said.
Because they thought they were getting jobs in her administration.
And then at Be Good 12345, Stroke reveals DOJ had deal with FBI not to investigate Clinton Foundation emails called Filter Team. Worked to limit search on servers, the Clintons, and whoever worked to protect the crooked Hillary Clinton and the Clinton crime family should be prosecuted. I couldn't agree more, 100%. And this at MAGA Volts 001. Federal judge tosses lawsuit that accused Trump campaign of conspiring with Russia and WikiLeaks to hack and release DNC emails. The irony of that, maybe Mueller should take a page from the federal judge that threw that out. Oh, and this is going to hurt the Democrats even more. At Chuck Costello, breaking, Arkansas Senate passes new bill banning abortions after 18 weeks, posted by starpolitical.com. This is critical that we win this abortion issue. Ohio has passed the heartbeat bill that bans abortion after a heartbeat is detected, which is anywhere from 6 to 8 to 9 weeks from becoming pregnant. This is incredible. We are moving in the right direction. I know some people are telling me, Brian, it's not enough. It's not enough. We got to get, we're moving in the right direction, and I'm happy with this. Support TV. We have a plan and putting together an organization that is going to overtake some of these rhino Republicans and take back Congress for the Christian movement. All right, folks, just like I said at the top of the hour, at the beginning of the show, we have our good friend Alex Phillips, the founder of American Priorities Conference. Now, I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate, and I did see over the week AT&T promoting 5G. And as you folks know, Donald Trump says that he wants to push for a 5G America, if you will. Alex is the professional. And I read the notes that you sent me. I looked over it. And I'll be honest with you, I see the flaws and the problems and the powers that be and the control. But how concerned for our listeners should they be about the 5G situation?
Well, I think they should be very concerned about how policy is being handled in D.C., especially at the FCC. You know, this whole concept of the America has to win at all cost at this 5G race. I can understand that because, we want to be the best. We want to have the most jobs. We want to be the leaders in technology. Historically, this type of thing has been the purview of the United States to provide leadership. It's been only as of late that the United States has seen itself slip as the leaders worldwide in telecommunication technology. And it's really comes down to the cell phone markets. The companies that are manufacturing the iPhones are in China, and other companies in Korea are starting to manufacture. We're starting to see a lot of diversity. LG, all these other companies are starting to make these phones, and so they've sort of taken a lead. And the United States kind of fell behind a little bit because we're not really manufacturing anymore, and we're just sort of leveraging other people's technology. So I think that we saw, in the beginning of President Trump's presidency, the discussion about how these Chinese chip manufacturers are backdooring into everybody's phones, and that's a legitimate concern. It's not just the phones; it's everything that's made in China has the ability of having these backdoors into our lives. And our phones specifically are part of our lives. They tell us where to go. They tell us where to buy gas. They tell us how to get to a friend's house if we're using the navigation. We tell it all of our stories on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everything else. So these things
all our personal information is on it. Everything.
Our phones are our best friends,
right?
You know, in so many cases, and so having access to that information is pretty scary. And we've already seen, you know, what the big technology companies in our own country can do with this information to leverage it, to sell it, you know, our information. And the regulators are having to contend with that. The Hill is addressing that issue of privacy. So there's a lot going on, but I think that, you know, you take away all that drama and controversy and you break it down into some of the more simple components of what regular people understand, and it comes down to choice and competition and what's best for the consumer. So in the 5G market, most of your large carriers dominate it. Verizon, AT&T, and Sprint are your top three. T-Mobile is, you know, coming up as, you know, number 4 in the smaller regional areas, and then everybody else, you know, Boost Mobile and various other, you know, off-brand names that you've heard are just resellers. They don't really own the infrastructure. They're not part of building this out. And they are the ones that have been providing the services to people. And when you look at prices and packages, for the most part, it's the same everywhere. It's an oligarchy, just like, you know, you see in cable internet today. You know, not much difference from one cable company to the next. And you know, there's a lot of push to make things faster. I think that the concept of 5G or the term 5G has been misused, or it's been bandied about as being, you know, the latest and greatest. It's going to solve a lot of problems. It's going to bring a lot of innovation. It's going to bring a lot of investment and affect the United States GDP because of the way it's being sold. It's being, you know, gigabit internet. Everybody's going to have gigabit internet in their phones.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. From what I understand, from the information you've given me, there might have to be more cell towers because there'll be a shorter, because it's so much information, it can't be sent in long distances.
Right. And so today's world, the 4G world, there are cell towers, you know, across the nation that have a range of anywhere from, you know, depending on geographic obstacles, you know, 1.5 miles to maybe 3 or 4 miles. And it depends on the cell carrier and what frequency they're using. Verizon is using some of the lower 700 megahertz, 800 megahertz frequencies, and so they can go a little further. And your Sprints and your T-Mobiles and AT&Ts are using some of the higher frequencies, so they can't go quite as far. But the 5G, you know, big bang for your buck model that they're talking about, when they're talking about the gigabit Ethernet, gigabit internet connections on your phones and these little handheld devices, it's really going to come from something called millimeter wave. So the idea is that the millimeter wave it's a smaller wave. It means it goes up and down more times per second than larger waves. That means every time it goes up and down, it can do something called a bit, you know, a piece of information, ones and zeros. And so the more ones and zeros you can squeeze in a second, that means the more data you can have on your phone or on your mobile device. And the millimeter wave, though, is a very short distance type system. I've used millimeter wave in my networks in an unlicensed capacity, and it requires a relatively large antenna to go 3 miles. So if you look at what you have on your phone, it's a very small antenna.
Right, right. So then if I'm in suburbia, which outside of Cincinnati, I mean, that's where we live. I've got great cell phone coverage, but if I get a little bit further out, maybe out into the woods or out in between, somewhere between Indianapolis and Cincinnati, out in the nowhere land, I've got reception, but it's not really that good. So you're saying that this would actually be even worse?
Well, for the millimeter wave, you're going to only see that in your urbanized areas. And so essentially, they're going to be mounting these on telephone poles, light poles, under the eaves of existing buildings. So the idea is that, you know, this particular transmitter is only going to be a few blocks away from you. And they're going to be leveraging fiber optic networks along the way. So you're going to have to literally be able to be in walking distance of your transmitter to be able to pick it up in this particular case. Now, 5G using the existing frequencies that our carriers are using today they're going to leverage more frequency and newer technology, but they're going to have the same distance constraints that you have today with 4G in your urban rural areas. And so, and in some cases, it may be worse because as you go faster with these existing frequencies, you have you can tolerate less opportunity for interference, less opportunity for drop channels or drop signaling. So that means that in some cases, if you live on a fringe today in 4G, that may be where you live in the world of 5G. You may still be on a 4G fringe because 5G will just be a block or two away from you. Too much lack of signal to be able to get that 5G rate that you need to be able to get the faster speeds. And then the other thing that people don't really quite understand is even if you live in a good area of 4G coverage today, your 5G speeds are only going to be somewhere around 15-20% faster, which is great. Faster is always better, but it's not the gigabit speeds that everybody's expecting.
Right. Well, not only that, but I guess the thing that worries me the most are the players involved.
Right. And so, I worked on, when I was at WISPA, I was on the FCC committee chair position, and then I eventually became president of the organization. And we worked with this group called the Wireless Innovation Alliance. And the purpose of that group was to define the rules for a new amount of spectrum that was going to be allocated called the Citizens Broadband Radio Service. And this was going to be a frequency that's being currently used by satellite operators and the military Navy. So the idea being that these satellite operators aren't everywhere at all times in the United States, and the Navy, strangely enough, is mostly just on the coastal areas and only when a ship is coming in and out of port, and in some isolated, undisclosed areas throughout the country where they have naval radar testing sites. So the idea of coordinating frequency use for both unlicensed and licensed use was a very viable option using computer technologies that we have. So the idea is that a radio service would come online and determine whether or not a frequency was available and get online on that frequency at any given time throughout the United States was a very viable option to provide very efficient use of spectrum that was not quite as used effectively throughout the United States as it could be for broadband services. But sometime over the past 2 years, the FCC got in their head, mostly from these carriers, that they wanted to change the rules. And the rules that they changed recently that went into effect this year was to make it more advantageous and more exclusive use for the larger companies, larger carriers who could afford to buy spectrum in larger blocks. It started off at some really unknown size that people don't really understand called an economic development area or economic population area, but just basically something that was an arbitrary area that covered multiple counties that didn't really have anything to do with the people that lived there. And now it's down to as small as a county-wide area in some rural areas, which can still be kind of too large for many small operators to be able to buy or lease. So you're saying this is kind of like a monopoly grab, if you will. Right. The idea that the carriers said that they could not compete and do the things that they said they wanted to do, which was bring billions of dollars of investment to the United States, bring 3 million jobs to the United States, and also have a $500 billion impact to the GDP. They said they couldn't do it unless the FCC made this spectrum only or more attractive for them and less attractive for small business. And so the problem there.
So did the FCC buy that?
Areas,
did the FCC bought that?
Yeah, they bought it hook, line, and sinker.
Oh.
They did a 180 on the rules, and it wasn't until after a lot of fighting from the rural phone companies, the Wireless ISP Association, and other people that partnered together were they able to bring it down a little bit, but they still made it out of the reach of many small ISP services across the country that provide services today in rural areas. And that's unfortunate.
Something that we were talking about before is that AT&T, the big monopoly, broken up back in the day, looking to grab more ground, looking to come back as another monopoly again?
Well, that's definitely something that they're pushing for. And really, when it came out, this Politico story that said the Trump 2020 campaign was pushing to have a nationalized 5G network. The idea being that, if the United States government built their own 5G network, then they were assuredly going to have one that was safe and effective. But it's being pushed by groups that I think have questionable motives. Bravada Networks, you can look them up online. They've got deep state, they've got DOD, ex-DOD, they've got establishment written all over them. And the idea being that they would create a wholesale network that anybody can buy access to, in my opinion, has some attractiveness to a lot of medium-sized companies because then they don't have the expense of building out. But in my historically experience, these types of networks don't really work out that great for the end user because there's all these people you can point fingers to as to where the problem was, and things don't ever get fixed. And right now, the company that's positioned to be a national provider of this service is AT&T because of their contract with FirstNet, which is a nationwide 4G public safety network. And that public safety network design is intermingled with a lot of the AT&T commercial spectrum. So basically, anywhere they build out, they're going to leverage the public safety spectrum and their own spectrum for public safety and for commercial use. So they basically got paid to build out this network, and they're grabbed right now for more 700 megahertz spectrum, which is considered beachfront property in the world of spectrum because it's low frequency and it means it goes through trees and things like that better. Really is kind of frightening because they're the ones that have the most power and lobby efforts in DC. They're the ones that can basically through T-Mobile convince the commissioners to do a 180 on CBRS. They're the ones that I believe have been told, the news has reported they even have an office at the FCC. So they're almost, part of the FCC today unofficially, pulling the strings on policy. And there's a lot of historical evidence of, commissioners like Michael Riley showing favoritism to even some of the things that AT&T has done against the public interest, like lying to the public about data plans. So I'm really concerned about how this is going, and I'd really like to see, the commission stop focusing on picking winners and losers when it comes to the public's interest and broadband services in America.
No, I agree 100%. And I know that we were talking about who was part of Trump's administration that was saying that they didn't have an agenda. Or that
well, it came out. So the story came out about Brad Parscale,
that's
in charge of the Trump 2020 campaign, and they were pushing Peter Thiel's idea because he's a big donor. But then if you look back the following day, the administration came out and said that they weren't in favor of this type of thing. That they believe that companies like AT&T and Verizon should build out their own networks. And Trump even said at CPAC, that week that he's against any social build out. But it was Larry Kudlow and other members of the FCC that are basically saying that this is not the administration's policy to have a nationalized 5G network.
And if Trump, Trump is a capitalist, and I do not see President Trump wanting to unilaterally use the government to build something that capitalists should actually build themselves. And on a side note, what about the health aspects of this? Does that change anything? You got more hertz, you got different waves.
I'm not really an expert on, the health aspects of radiation, but I have looked at some filings, and I know Motorola filed with the FCC for their Moto 3 product, which is actually what I've got here, and they have these mods that go on the back of them. And so the Moto 3 has a 5G mod. So I pull this off, and it's my battery. I put this 5G mod on the back of it. So one of the things that I think was most concerning to me, even though again I'm not an expert at radiation health risks, is that to pass muster, this phone has to use its proximity sensor, which it has. So like when I put my phone up against my head like this, it knows that it's up against my face because of the proximity sensor in here, and it turns the screen off. It just does that because, you don't want to be punching buttons with your cheek. But in this particular case, the proximity sensor was going to be used so that the 5G modification on the back doesn't transmit through your head. So like if I'm using the millimeter wave signaling and the antenna is to my right, then it'll transmit that way. But if for some reason the antenna is to my left, they don't want that signal to go through my head because it's, I guess, not safe to do that. So that's the thing that concerns me. So these things right here, you know, they call them smartphones, but what they are in reality are computers on a network, on an internet network. And so everybody I know has at least had their computer infected or hacked or something bad to them at some point in time in the past, where they did it on purpose because they downloaded something they shouldn't have, or it was they went to a website and they got some kind of a little thing that exploded into a big thing. These types of phones are getting hacked all the time. And so my question to the FCC is, once a phone is compromised and that proximity sensor is disabled, does it then become a health risk to transmit through my head in millimeter wave at the power levels it needs to transmit?
Wow, I'd never thought about that. Yeah.
It sounds kind of scary to me.
Wow. No, that's incredible. So 5G, good, possibly bad, might create a monopoly with AT&T. The government, once again, the FCC, picking winners and losers, and we saw how that went with Barack Obama.
The other public safety issues that I think I'm noticing too is, so the big buzz on 5G was that it was going to create all this innovation. And I've went to many of these meetings that they've had, especially AT&T sponsored ones, and they talk about all these new products and services that are going to be made available in the world of 5G. One of them being, you can go to the NASCAR race car events and put the phone in some kind of a thing, and then have virtual reality of being in the race car with your favorite race car, driver.
No way.
Yeah, that's great. But the other thing they keep talking about has to do with driverless cars. Okay.
Yes.
And that's a line crosser for me, because, as much as I would love to not have to drive my car ever again, especially when I drive to Washington, I do not trust a driverless car that's on an open or any kind of network, because networks can be hacked. Network security is only as good as the guy who wrote the security package, and the next guy that comes after him is going to defeat that. So,
well, what if you have a disgruntled employee?
Yeah, the public just needs to realize that, this whole concept of driverless vehicles, I'm all for it as long as all the brains and all the guts that control the driving are able to be isolated within a car and not part of some kind of network. The other safety features where cars are communicating with each other, that's kind of a different thing, although there's still some risk there. So like if I tap my brakes in front of you, then my car tells your car, hey, I'm tapping my brakes. And so now your car knows to slow down before I even notice the brake lights come on. But that's a different thing. There's still risk there. But when you talk about putting a car on an internet connection, no matter how secure it is, military, whatever, it's going to get hacked. It's going to be a potential threat. And, you're going to see people on the 405 in California, all driving off the bridge one day.
Oh, no, that 405 is insane, folks. I lived out there for 10 years. It's a complete parking lot from north to south. It's absolutely nuts. The traffic out there, you have to gauge your life around traffic.
Right.
So yeah.
So one of the things that I think is kind of good right now that could be happening, Spectrum is the lifeblood of internet these days. Fiber, was the big thing during the Obama administration, and he gave away, billions of dollars to companies. West Virginia alone got 120, almost 130 $million to build fiber for broadband services. Yet they're still 48th in broadband in the country. So something
insane.
happened there, and it didn't go right. But all the phone companies got all the fiber built for their use, and now they want to leverage that fiber to build these 5G networks, so they can then have the control. But the Wireless ISP Association, which is an organization I'm a member of, and I used to be president of, has been proposing some spectrum sharing ideas to the FCC in the next batch of spectrum that's up for grabs, which is the 3.7 to 4.2 gigahertz band. And that's the old C-band satellite network, which C-band is still used throughout the country today. It's the big satellite dishes. They used to make fun of them as being West Virginia flowers, but they are. That's a lot of spectrum that can be used for both mobile access for 5G. About 200 megahertz of that spectrum could be sold off. The C-band satellite operators can be moved down to the lower 300 megahertz of that spectrum, and then since they're not everywhere all the time in the country on the same channel, fixed use, outdoor fixed use could be coordinated so that people could start delivering what I call fixed gigabit wireless internet to consumers. And it has all the pluses. It gets broadband in rural areas in a very cost-effective way. And the antenna, the large antenna, and the frequency that's being used is outside, far away from the user. So there's no worried about proximity sensors and transmitting through my head.
So how do we get that implemented? Who do you propose that to, or is there any stopping of what's happening? Can this? Well,
people that are listening to this broadcast that live in rural areas that have a gripe about either the unavailability of internet services in your area or the fact that you only have one company that you can call and you hate them because they're terrible.
Yes.
Go to the wirelessISPassociation.org website. It's WISPA.org, and they've got a link about their filing on this gigabit proposal for the C-band spectrum. Read about it. They've got some pretty easy to understand summaries about it. But write your congressman. Complain to your senator. Basically, tell them that that this oligarchy of large businesses being favored by DC needs to stop. And I'm not saying that this is a war between small and large businesses where small should be here and large should be there. This is really a situation where both are needed, okay? In every area that I've served, I compete with areas that have Comcast, cable services. I have competition against Verizon, DSL services, and in some places we have no competition whatsoever other than satellite and cellular. But folks need to have choice. And small businesses have a tendency to be able to fill the niche markets in some of these rural areas in a way that the cookie cutter solutions that big businesses have to use to be able to operate nationwide just don't fit. And then in some cases, you just have a situation where, a person had a bad experience with their Verizon or with their Comcast or their Cox Cable or whoever. And they just want somebody else to work with, and they just want to have a choice, and that keeps everybody honest.
Well, and here in our studio, we've actually switched services. One provider has absolutely failed us in every aspect over the last year, and I called up local Cincinnati Bell, and they offer a tremendous package for a cheaper price. So I'm thrilled that I have that ability. I wish I had that ability with my energy, my electricity, but I don't have a choice on that one.
Well, I guess just give that time. But it's the other thing too that competition in the marketplace brings, and this is a funny story. This was years and years ago, when the first discussions of net neutrality started. This is before net neutrality was implemented during Wheeler's administration at the FCC. I was asked to come on the BBC to have a debate with a New York professor, okay? And so they expected, me to say net neutrality is bad, and they expected him to say net neutrality is good, and why. So we both are on this show, and, we're the hottest thing in New Delhi. I don't know, many people in the United States actually saw it, but, ironically, we were both saying the same thing, that the FCC completely misses the point on competition, that with more competition, there's less need for these types of regulations, because inevitably the government will regulate something and they will do a really bad job at it because they have to look at it from such a large encompassing area of information to try to address every possible circumstance. So, they end up doing a bad job. And that's what the implementation of net neutrality that we just got out of was. It was a bad idea. The concept of having to file all this paperwork and all this reporting, all it did was make my costs go up, and it provided no benefit at all to the consumer, because I have no interest in doing anything to my company, my customers, the internet, because I want them to do everything they want to do. It makes me competitive in a way that I've never been before. You know, that they can get over the top TV, that they can get their phone service, that they can do all these crazy things, you know, with their businesses that they couldn't do before. So I have no need for it. It's not any incentive at all for a small business to do this. But the small business was the one that seemed to be paying the most price for this, because these large companies, it's a drop in the bucket for them. So when you have competition, then there is no need, because then if, like you said, you weren't happy with your company, and if you had no other choice, then you go to the government and complain.
Yeah.
But if you got choice, you go get another company.
Right, absolutely. It almost kind of reminds me of the whole incident with Walmart that was accepting of Obamacare, and we were shocked at that. We couldn't believe that they were okay with that, or okay with higher minimum wages, and come to find out they could afford it, and it would eliminate their competition.
Yeah,
with the government,
exactly.
Using the government, allowing the government to help them eliminate their competition.
And that is a true story. Anytime, it doesn't matter who's in the White House and who controls Congress, Democrats or Republicans. What I've seen when it comes to regulation with broadband, and this is probably with a lot of things that have regulations to them, that the Democrats want to regulate small business out of existence, and the Republicans want to deregulate and create rules that are incentivize big business to have the advantage. So the common denominator is that big business has the advantage no matter who is in control of the government.
Right.
That's the bottom line. And obviously, because big business funds campaigns, funds lots of things that make things happen. So, you know, I know that, you know, I don't give that much money to campaigns, but I give what I can, you know, to people that I support. And but in general, these large companies like AT&T, they're on both sides. They're whoever, you know, they're giving their money out equitably to everybody, just in case, you know, this guy wins versus that guy.
Right. No, and that's the sad truth of it all. So, folks, again, contact your congressman. You got to speak up, call them, and the website is, and I'll put it in the show notes. But go ahead and give the website again.
So the Wireless ISP Association is wispa.org, and they've got a lot of good information there about, you know, broadband services and programs that they're going. They are literally one of the smallest, most underfunded advocacy groups in DC, and they've made a lot of progress over the past, you know, decade of being, you know, a small, you know, representing small companies. But they're having trouble now because, you know, what we used to say was our justification for, you know, why we're doing it right and they're doing it wrong. The big carriers are starting to adopt those same practices, and so now they're taking what we used to do and doing it their way, and now saying that they can do everything that we were doing as far as small providers. But it's not true. It's not true at all. History has shown that the large carriers will focus on your NFL cities, your large, you know, urbanized areas. And when it comes down to it, you know, when they're spending money out in rural areas, they will stop if they start seeing some erosion of their market in some of the bigger areas.
Yeah, I mean, I could certainly see that. Why would a big giant corporation focus on people that live out in the sticks when they're far and few between, and the amount of money that you would make would be insignificant compared to what you're making in the big cities? No, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's about the donut.
Yeah.
And so I learned that economic vernacular from AT&T at one of the events that they were talking about, how the donut hole has to pay for the donut.
Right.
The hole being the urbanized areas, and the donuts is where we all live.
Wow. No, that makes sense. All right. Thank you, Alex. I really appreciate you coming on and giving us this insight. I was a little bit hesitant, but now I absolutely agree with you 100%. This absolutely needs to stop, and it needs to go back to the free market.
Well, we're going to be talking about some of this stuff at our next conference. I'm with American Priority. We're going to have our next conference at the Trump Doral in the October weekend of Columbus Day.
Oh,
and
fantastic.
That's going to be in Miami. And we're going to talk about the Internet Bill of Rights. I'm going to try to bring some good speakers to talk about that, because that's something that other people should be interested in as well, because it's more than just, protecting your rights, when you buy a certain package, but it's also protecting our rights of freedom of speech and other things to do business on the internet. Our world is changing so quickly when it comes to internet technology that it's almost impossible for the government to keep up with it. So it might be on us, our responsibility as small businesses and corporations and people and the public in general to try to address this problem.
No, I agree 100%. So all the details for the American Priorities Conference coming up here in October. Look down in the show notes in the description below, and you'll find all the information that you need. And again, AmericanPriorities.com. Stay connected, and we'll also post all of this as well at smith.tv. And New Right Network tonight is here to support and move this entire thing forward. And again, I really appreciate you coming on and giving us all the information, Alex.
Thanks, Brian. It's good talking to you.
You too, buddy. And promises made, promises kept by President Donald Trump at Renee Carroll AZ, at Real Donald Trump, is colorblind. One people under God with liberty and justice for all, president. At BET founder applauds POTUS for putting $800 billion back into 401ks of Black and Hispanic Americans. Walk away from the Democrat Party, #Blexit. Folks, I reported this when Donald Trump said it a few years back. He talked about the 401k plans, and check out this video. This is incredible stuff.
The historic document that created something called auto portability. Auto portability is designed to reduce retirement leakage among low-income 401k account holders who tend to cash out. And Mr. President, you should know this, 60% of African American and Hispanic Americans cash out of their 401k account. When this program, the policy that Secretary Costa initiated along with my company, is implemented along with the big financial record keepers, the Fidelities, the Vanguards, this program will put close to $800 billion back in the retirement pockets of minority Americans. So I just want to applaud you for that.
And over the weekend as well, Donald Trump tweeting out the veto, and here's the video on that.
Consistent with the law and the legislative process designed by our founders, today I am vetoing this resolution. Congress has the freedom to pass this resolution, and I have the duty to veto it, and I'm very proud to veto it. And I'm very proud, as I said, of a lot of Republican senators that were with me. And I'm also very proud of the House. The Republicans in the House voted overwhelmingly in favor of a secure border.
And Donald Trump having Attorney General Bill Barr at his side at the signing of the veto. Quote, "The crisis that we're dealing with today is right on our doorstep, and it presents a real, clear, and present danger to the American people."
Directly authorizes the president, gives broad discretionary authority to the president to identify and respond to emergent circumstances that require a decisive response. And the humanitarian and security crisis we have on the border right now is exactly the kind of emergency that presidents are permitted to address under the National Emergencies Act. Right. As you alluded to yourself, in the past 40 years, there have been 59 emergencies declared. And many of these have dealt with political conditions in countries like Burundi, Sierra Leone, Belarus, The crisis that we're dealing with today is right on our doorstep, and it presents a real, clear, and present danger to the American people. So what you've done from a legal standpoint is solidly grounded in law, and from the standpoint of protecting the American people, it's imperative.
Attorney General Barr has said that Donald Trump is clearly in the right on the veto and clearly in the right on the executive order for the national emergency to build the wall. And Trump tweeted this out from Lou Dobbs talking with former ICE Director Thomas Hoffman.
Appreciation for law enforcement, for everyone in that room. It was an emotional ceremony at the White House, and you could see the president's support and his appreciation for law enforcement, for everyone in that room. The angel parents reciprocated. It was a stirring moment. Your thoughts?
Well, I think, one of the greatest presidents of my generation did exactly what he should have done, did exactly what he said he was going to do, and did exactly what the American people expected of a president. Do everything he can legally to protect his nation, protect his citizens. I respect this man greatly because he proved, again, like he's done so many times, again today, he proved he's a great president. Because he basically says, I will fight whoever I need to fight, including those within my own party, to do what's right for this nation. That's what a president's supposed to do, and that's what makes this man a great president.
And again, great news. If you would like to retweet this show so that Ann Coulter can get a good heads up on what's going on, Donald Trump hashtag wacky nut job, Ann Coulter. That was pretty good. Love it, my Trump. And this tweeted out at ADRIANDT31. Donald Trump updates Barack Obama's emergency powers executive order. Trump's new executive order toughens Obama's order by updating definitions. Transitional criminal organizations, pure genius at POTUS will get this wall built. This is the real news that's out there, folks. Donald Trump is fighting for us every single day, and we need to back him up and fight for him. Watch New Right Network tonight. Share this with your friends and your family. Go to smith.tv. Be a part of this movement, folks. The Christian movement. This is the only way we're going to be able to take our country back. Be a part of it. Jump over to smith.tv and join us. American Priorities Conference coming up the weekend of Columbus Day in October. So excited to be a part of that, as well as with Alex. Just a great guy all around. And again, thank you for the incredible interview. All right, folks, we will see you every night, Monday through Friday, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern, right here at New Right Network tonight. Thank you, and have a good night now.
You've been listening to New Right Network, mobilizing, countering, energizing. Online at newrightnetwork.com.